All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking the incredibly quirky, rebellious history of an absolute icon in the soda world and its most famous and ill-fated independent bottler. We're talking about a brand that literally built a beverage empire on being different, only to eventually find itself at war with its most authentic, historically grounded offspring. It's a wild ride.
But hey, before we get into that whole David versus Goliath showdown, let me hit you with a quick trivia question. What is America's oldest major soft drink? Now, I know most people instantly guess Coca-Cola, right? Makes sense. But the real answer actually takes us deep into the heart of Texas.
Yep, the true grandfather of American soda is actually Dr. Pepper. It was invented in Waco, Texas back in 1885. That actually predates Coke by a full year, and it made its grand debut right at the local soda fountain inside Morrison's old corner drugstore.
Moving right into Section 1, shooting a Waco and a pharmacist's aromatic invention.
So, the whole story kicks off with this guy, Charles Alderton. Now, Alderton wasn't some slick corporate beverage marketer. He was a pharmacist. A medicine man, basically, who loved experimenting with sensory experiences. He was absolutely obsessed with the way the drugstore smelled. You know, that chaotic, super sweet mix of all the different fruits, syrups just blending together in the air. He wanted to invent a carbonated drink that tasted exactly like that smell. And after some really painstaking experimentation, he actually nailed it. The drink got so popular that locals would literally sit at the fountain and just ask him to shoot a Waco. Once demand for this wild new concoction outpaced the local fountain, the real quirky lore of the brand began. The store owner, Wade Morrison, decided they needed an official name. As the legend goes, Morrison named it Dr. Pepper specifically to impress a girl's father back in Virginia. Spoiler alert, he didn't get the girl, but he did get very, very rich. The brand eventually scaled way up, debuting to a staggering 20 million people at the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. And today, protecting that original legacy is serious business. The exact formula is kept highly classified, actually split across two entirely separate bank vaults in Dallas.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 23 flavor mystery and busting the prune juice myth.
To really understand what this top secret recipe is, we have to officially bust a huge myth right here and now. This famously misunderstood soft drink does not contain a single drop of prune juice. None. Zero. It's one of those crazy persistent urban legends that has just stuck around for decades, but it is 100% false. Instead, that totally unique, kind of spicy sweet flavor profile comes from an exact, highly guarded mixture of 23 different fruit syrups and phosphoric acid that Charles Alderton originally perfected. It's not a cola, it's not a root beer, it is entirely in a category of its own. All right, on to Section 3, marketing the misunderstood and becoming the ultimate outsider brand.
You can really see how their marketing strategy evolved over the decades to lean into this. In the early days, they played it pretty straight, claiming to be the king of beverages. But by the 1920s, some research came out suggesting people hit a massive energy slump at 10:30, 2:30, and 4:30. So, Dr. Pepper boldly told consumers to drink a bite to eat at 10, 2, and 4. They were literally scheduling exactly when you should drink their soda. Fast forward to the 1960s, and they fully embraced their counterculture outsider status, proudly dubbing themselves America's most misunderstood soft drink. And then, in 1977, they spun that unique identity into a massive inclusive community vibe with the legendary Be a Pepper campaign.
That 10, 2, and 4 marketing angle was actually so culturally dominant that it spawned its own card game variant. I'm not kidding. In Dr. Pepper Poker, the 10s, 2s, and 4s are all played as wildcards. It's just a brilliant example of how deeply embedded this brand became in everyday American life.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, the cult of Dublin and the rise of an authentic Texas icon.
So, back in the late 1970s and early 80s, the price of sugar absolutely spiked. Because of this, almost all American soft drink bottlers shifted over to high-fructose corn syrup to save on production costs. But there was this one independent plant, the Dublin Dr. Pepper Bottling Company in Texas, and they flat out refused. They stubbornly stuck to the original recipe, continuing to sweeten their batches with pure imperial cane sugar.
Because they held on to this incredible historical authenticity, Dublin Dr. Pepper built this fiercely loyal cult following. They were the oldest remaining Dr. Pepper bottler, having continuously produced the drink since 1891. And get this, they were still using vintage 1930s machinery and old-school returnable glass bottles. The place essentially became a pilgrimage site. It was drawing up to 80,000 visitors a year to the tiny town of Dublin, Texas, just so fans could get a taste of the pure cane sugar original.
Which leads us right into Section 5, A bitter legal battle and a real David versus Goliath showdown in the soda aisle.
So what actually caused the massive rift between the parent company and this beloved little bottler? Well, it all comes down to a super strict geographical limit, 44 miles. See, because of their original 1925 franchise agreement with corporate, Dublin was legally restricted to selling their cane sugar soda within just a 44-mile radius of their plant.
But, of course, then came the internet age. Die-hard fans well outside that tiny radius started ordering the cane sugar version online, and Dublin happily shipped it out. Well, this triggered a massive, highly publicized legal dispute over territorial rights and trademarks. On one side, you had the Dr. Pepper Snapple Group, a corporate behemoth with $5.6 billion in 2010 revenue, stepping in as the plaintiff, claiming trademark dilution and territorial breaches. On the other side, Dublin Dr. Pepper Bottling, a $7 million family operation trying to defend their online sales. The sheer contrast in scale here between these two entities, the modern corporate structure versus local historical legacy, is just wild.
The conclusion to this epic showdown finally arrived on January 12, 2012. Ultimately, the settlement forced the independent bottler to completely drop the Dr. Pepper name and entirely cease producing those iconic 6.5 and 10-ounce deposit bottles. The parent company acquired the franchise rights and fully took over the territory's distribution.
But as you might expect, the Dublin plant didn't go totally quietly into the night. In this amazingly cheeky nod to their bitter legal defeat, the newly renamed Dublin Bottling Works actually printed a Bible verse, Matthew 5:44, on some of their transition bottles. It reads, "Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you." It was a very subtle yet pretty profound parting message to their corporate parent. So where does the story land today? Well, while they can obviously no longer make anything even resembling Dr. Pepper, the plucky Dublin plant totally survived. Dublin Bottling Works is still operating today, continuing their pure cane sugar legacy with an entirely new line of historic sodas. Right now, they produce 18 different sugar-sweetened drinks, including the Dublin 1891 Founder's Recipe Cola and a Vintage Cola, which keeps that awesome 19th century bottling spirit alive for a whole new generation. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Does corporate consolidation inevitably destroy the very authenticity and rebellion that built a brand in the first place? Think about it. Dr. Pepper built a massive empire on being out of the ordinary. Yet, when one of its own bottlers became an outlier by stubbornly clinging to the past, the corporate system simply couldn't tolerate it. It's a truly fascinating look at what happens when local tradition crashes head-on into global scale. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you in the next one.